all these designers now I think are like artists also, and it's almost like their own little side persona or something.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I really like the concept of a side persona.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jesse Nyberg Podcast. We're here with Foie, a super talented designer and artist and musician, kind of a Renaissance person, I guess you could say. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm great. Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing all right. A little bit tired, but I drank my coffee, so I think I'll be all right.
We will prevail.
Yeah, exactly. How have you been doing this past week?
Awesome. I just went to LA for a spell. I went to Substance Fest. And and now I'm back to the grind and working on my commissions and going to the library every day.
Yeah, what do you do at the library? When you told me that on Twitter, I was like wondering. I know what people do at the library, but what do you do specifically there?
Okay, well, I just need, like, I have my room and I love it and it's to my specification, but I just can't focus here. So I go to the library and I sit and I focus, and sometimes I source, like I reference books that I find. It's just a very inspiring place for me. And then people leave me alone too. So it's just like a really great place to think and just like really think.
Yeah, I feel like when you're at the library, it's like the most place you can't bother someone else. Like you're disrespectful for talking to someone when they're at the library.
There was a man yesterday and he was like having a semi-loud conversation like about 20 feet away from me, and I could just feel the wrath of God in me. Like, this is my quiet space.
Yeah, this is the library. So do you reference like old like illustrations and things? Like, is that what you're kind of talking about?
Yeah, big time. I like referencing classic art that people know. Like if I redraw it, like I did a piece recently that had Truth coming out of her well to shame mankind, which is a really old art piece. And kind of the nods to the masters.
Yeah. That's cool, because I feel like what's interesting about getting like inspiration or even like referencing and things like that is when you have such a different style, or like what you do is so rooted in something else than the thing you're referencing, even if like it's obvious, it's also not at the same time. Like it looks completely different, because like no person, even if you try to copy it exactly, it'd look different, because it's impossible to not leave your own little, like, I don't know, flavor on it or whatever you want to call it.
Right. I think it's in a form just kind of honoring something you like, because like back in the day, you would learn how to paint since you were 5. You wouldn't go to school. You would just, that was your life every day. You would be like an apprentice from really young, and you would get to this level that I know logically I would never get to. So I could never rip off like Goya or something.
Yeah.
But I can attribute to him.
For real. I also like admiring art and design that I personally don't think I'm either interested in doing or capable of creating, because then I feel like I look at it from a complete lens of appreciation, rather than when it's something similar to something I do. I'm just like, oh, maybe I would have done that, or like, oh, they did this there. Like I try to break it apart, and it almost ruins like the just being like a fan or whatever. Like you start overanalyzing it. But I don't know. I mean, I think we have it easy, really. Like the shit that people were doing back in the day is just so like remarkable, and the resources were so much less. The only advantage I guess they had is less stuff had already been done. That's the only thing I could think of.
That's true, but as harder as it was, let's say like the 60s with hand laying type, there's something about it, even like the most simple, even like the objectively like worst piece of design had so much personality to it because it was laid out by hand, because it was like, because like one poster paid 3 months of rent, you know, because like it took time. And there's, I see that stuff and I recognize how difficult it was to make, but it just warms my heart.
Yeah, I think that's why, like, not just with design, but anything, like, people in this generation gravitate so much towards like older things and like analog things, like whether it be like printing or screen printing or like even vinyl, like all that shit kind of having a resurgence is because like we've been just in this weird like digital age for so long that like, you know, everything's so perfect now that all everyone does on Photoshop is make their shit look like it wasn't made in a computer, you know, like it's pretty funny.
Right. Like, I'm spending I think it's really funny. I was thinking about it this morning that I'm spending hours making something look like it was Xeroxed on Photoshop without using a Xerox machine or a printer.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the ultimate compliment too is when someone's like, is that like, how'd you do that? Is that digital or is that like analog? Because then you know you like fooled them and they could never know either way.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost wonder how I would be like as a designer or as like an artist if I was limited to those resources. Like if that was the only thing, like if doing Xerox printing or doing hand laying type was the only way like it used to be, that's not an advantage anymore. Like that's not like a cool thing that you do. Like, oh, you do shit analog. Like it's just normal. So I wonder, I feel like you had to almost be better back then because there was less to like separate you from other people.
True. Very true.
I don't know. I sometimes feel that I would like suck as a designer back in the day. Like I'd be too lazy or something, even though I like to do analog shit. Sometimes now, if I had to only do it, I may get a little impatient.
I used to work for a printer and do analog stuff. I think there is like a form of excitement that comes from like kind of taking that stab in the dark. And then I personally always wanted to challenge myself and do better. And I think it's a process. Like, yeah, I started out super lazy too. But then you kind of see the your work in real life and it becomes sort of like a fascination. I don't want to say addiction, but like definitely like a fascination. Yeah,
I see that with other people too, that not just like a specific analog style, but when someone gets into a new like avenue or style of design that they start exploring, you can tell that it like completely encompasses them, because then the next like year, that's all they're posting. Like the most common example is I know a lot of designers that learn like 3D and then after that all they do is 3D. I never see them go back to like just like typography or whatever again. And I don't know, I haven't really found that thing yet. Like I still just love like, I don't know, classic design or whatever you want to call it, just 2D like layouts and typography, and just I feel like I sometimes feel like I'm afraid to explore new things because I haven't even fully mastered the thing that I want to be doing. So it's,
and that's
like,
the thing, you're never gonna master it. It's like it's a trap unless I don't know, unless you're doing, and you're super, your compositional skills, your work is like incredible.
Thank you.
So I believe in you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I want to, before we get super far, I wanted you to kind of give a background a little bit on yourself as in what you do, as well as why, because you do a lot of things. So I'm curious why you do these two different things. So you have this almost whole like design kind of community and world, and then you have this whole other world where people, I'm sure, only know you or know you as like a musician, you know?
Well, they're very related because when I started making music, I knew nothing about music, but I was in school for design. I just wanted to make album covers. So I started putting out this really rudimentary music that I taught myself how to play. But what I really wanted to do was know that I could make something attractive that people would gravitate to, because as much as people want to say don't judge a book by its cover, like, we're going to judge that book by its cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like I'm just watching my music stuff kind of unfold in its own realm, but at my heart I will always be a designer and want to help people kind of achieve that attractiveness to make their work alluring,
Mm-hmm. Well, I see, like, you explaining it kind of felt like ironic that I was thinking, because you explaining that I judged you by the cover or whatever, because I assumed that it was the other way around. You're this artist who is also interested in doing design, not a designer who's also interested in pursuing like music and things.
Yeah, the music thing was like kind of a joke. I mean, my band is called Foie Gras. I didn't ever think I was going to be playing like shows, or like let alone festivals, or like having a studio album and vinyl. That's so crazy to me. Like, meeting my heroes, them liking my music, like, that's so weird. I just wanted to make album covers.
Yeah, I mean, that's how that shit works sometimes. Like, I know people in other like avenues that have just, they do one thing and then they just start doing some other thing and it blows up. Like, I know people that are just artists and, they started like streaming and now they're just like video game like streamers that everyone watches. So I'm sure that wasn't in their like whatever 5-year plan or whatever you want to call it.
It's like the spiritual, like in a spiritual sense, like when you find your flow state and it just takes you and you're just riding this wave. And I think it's so important to always stay curious about what's going to happen next. And if you have the ability to kind of chase something that like kind of fascinates you, like, do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't explore things that they like because they find one thing they like and then they like, it encompasses their identity too much that then they're like, well, I'm a designer, or I'm a guitarist, or I'm this, so like I can't also be an actor, I can't also be a comedian or whatever like other thing you like. And because I think it's just like human nature that we all want to like be involved in some kind of group or like be labeled in some way. But then to our own demise sometimes. Like, sometimes I feel that way with design. Like, I think I fall into this bad mindset, like, oh, I can't get into this, like I'm already doing design way too much, like it's the only thing I'm allowed to focus on. But it's not true, and it's probably would barely take away from my designing to get into something else.
I think in this society, especially when it's like so hard to make a living wage, unfortunately sometimes wearing multiple hats is a form of survival.
Yeah.
And I just have really bad ADD. And I think I'm very allergic to boredom, and I want to do a lot of things because, like, ultimately I do want to survive, but I want to survive doing something that I really enjoy. And if I see like one avenue kind of lacking, I'm gonna look at the other one. Yeah,
I try to have a lot of things like going at once, even if they're not like different avenues, but maybe like hobbies or income streams. That way, like, I'm not reliant on one, and like, what is it? Like, don't put all your eggs in a basket or whatever that saying is, like, cause I've seen like with COVID, especially people that had like their like career, like salary jobs, once they lost it, they were like shook and they had nothing to do, and they didn't have other things going on. So it was like, you can't just be able to be completely wiped out by one event. You need to have other things going on all at the same time.
Right. And it's so unfortunate, but that's just the reality of the situation.
I think also, like, I don't know, there's something fun about what am I trying to say? I agree with you with the whole like boredom thing. Like, I don't think I have like ADHD or ADD, like, whatever from a doctor prescribed, but I do have this feeling of like, even if I'm really good at one specific style of design or one thing, like even if I know it'll work and I can do it over and over, I can't do it for more than like a month or a few weeks. Like, I get so bored of doing the same thing.
Right.
Whether it be even with like, I don't know, like something as stupid as like my haircut, or I used to like color my hair all the time because like I just couldn't like stand being like recognized as the same thing, and it's just boring and everything gets so boring so quick. I'm always simultaneously impressed but also like confused by people that can just do the same thing over and over and over, but they do
Me
it good.
too.
But I'm like, I don't know, aren't you bored?
Right. I don't know how anyone can stay consistent, especially since there's like so many tools to play with and like so many avenues to explore, that I am very impressed by people who do that. But I just
I think some people just like, that is, if they don't do it that way, they won't do it at all. So it's almost like they need to do it that way, or else they might not even create. So I'd rather someone be doing the same thing than not do anything. But I think I almost do the too much changing it up to my like demise though. Like, I could probably benefit from being a little bit more consistent, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I maybe benefit like through the internet or through other people's perception, but I don't think it'd benefit me as like an individual. Because
I want to look at your Instagram really quick again.
Okay.
1 second. I just love through like, even because I remember that you did this is a kind of like a physical one, your Shining poster. I mean, even if you don't feel like you're consistent, there's like a string of Jesse that runs through everything you make. And I think that's really beautiful. So I think, I mean, you can stray from your norm, but it's still you. And I think that's awesome. I think people on the outside looking in would consider that like a form of consistency, right?
Yeah, I think, I appreciate that. I think I was talking to this other dude like that has this brand, Boss Dog. That's like his name, and that episode will have been out yet when this one's out. But he was saying like, I was asking him like where he got his style, or like how does he feel his style was defined, and he said he doesn't think that he's able to answer that. Other people have to answer that for him, because your style is almost like you have a technique or you have a way of working maybe, but the style he said I think is defined by the viewer. And I feel like that makes sense. You saying that too makes sense. Like, maybe I didn't see that thread, but I could say the same about your work. Like, when I see your work, I know that you made it because there's like a common thread, whether it be the style of texture or the like themes that you use. I feel like they all kind of flow through each other.
I'm so happy you said that, because I feel like, because I too feel like it's because there's so many different processes I use. I feel like I'm not consistent, but I'm glad that like it could still be me too. Thank you for saying that. Yeah,
I guess we both just needed someone to tell us that to think that we're consistent. So now all our problems are gone. We should be good.
We're good.
I wanted to ask you also about, so when you were doing the music stuff and then COVID happened, did that slow that down and then you got even more back into design again?
100%. Like, I was on my dream tour, like my dream tour when COVID hit. And I quit my job. I was a social media manager, and I'm like, this is my trajectory. I'm just going to tour now.
Yeah.
I quit my job right before COVID hit. And I went on tour with this band called The Body, who I've been a fan of since I was a teen. And this other band called The Uniform, or not The Uniform, just Uniform. And I adore them to no end. And I felt so special that I was being taken on this tour. And I think we're about a week or two in. And we're in Georgia and we have to fly back. We get emergency flights back. Like it has to
like
disperse.
in March or something.
In March. And I really thought that I would spend lockdown improving myself, but I think it was just needed mental rest for a hot second. And when for me, my design is like my diary. It's the place I go to express myself, even if it's in symbolic ways. So I spent a lot of time kind of expressing my frustration with things, with people, with myself, and even my like joy through design, through the pandemic, because there was something about music. I just could not pick up a guitar and play. It just didn't feel right. I felt like I needed more healing. And I feel like I find my healing through design. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like with music too, design can be personal and you can put yourself into it, but when it goes out, it can be like more disconnected with music or like being like your face, like a video or whatever. It's a lot more vulnerable. So like if you were not feeling up for it, I feel like it'd be a lot harder to put out a song rather than put out like graphics, because you can kind of separate yourself from them more.
Exactly.
I think COVID really blurred the line between like the idea of like this has been getting blurred the past like 20-30 years, I think, but like design and art, you know, like people used to say like, you know, like design isn't art, like it's for like, you know, commerce or like this and that, and like art isn't design or whatever. But you know, Instagram is like a perfect example of that really not being true anymore. Like you have all these designers that do whatever they do off the internet, and then they have this whole other like diary. Like Instagram's kind of like Tumblr now, really. Like everyone just posts like their little curated like pictures and shit and like designs, and they may be what they do in their like freelance career, or they may not, you know, but it's its own thing. And people like, there's people I know online that have hundreds of thousands of followers. They have this style, and then their portfolio is all like corporate, like brand identity and shit. And it's like completely different. It's really interesting to see like all these designers now, I think, are like artists also. And it's almost like their own little side persona or something.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I really like the concept of a side persona. That's really exciting because, like, again, if we go back to survival, me as a designer, I've had to do the corporate thing, and there's a part of me that really enjoys it because it's a challenge. But then you got like the art thing too. But I also like Gen Z branding for that reason, because that's where you see the blend of corporate and art.
Yeah, and the corporations are like, oh, this shit like makes money now. Like, let's be cool. So it's like obviously a malicious like intent on their side, but it's still like a win for design and like artists, because then we get to create like cooler shit, you know? Right. Like, have you seen you know, like the pirate studios, right? Like the ones in LA and like different cities. They're like
looking it up.
It's almost like Airbnb for like studio time or like recording. So you basically go in and you pay like for set hours or whatever, and you record your music or you use the equipment. Their whole branding's like aerial, like super compressed and stretched out. Yeah. And
that's sick.
Their whole thing was like, well, I guess my point was that's like a no-no, you know, in design or whatever. Like they'll stretch the fonts and shit, especially like a font that's like Arial, like it's a system font that everyone knows. And they made their whole branding around that. And it's like, that wouldn't have, like some art director would have like shut that down like 10 years ago, you know?
Right. Yeah. But it's like, it is like a big FU to tradition. And I appreciate that.
Even I did the Spotify thing today, like the
Wrapped.
Yeah, and their genres were like that, like a stretch squeezed in, like kind of serif or sans serif. And I was just thinking like, yeah, like that shit wouldn't have been happening without these people like trying to it's kind of like we're back in the time of like the 90s when like people like David Carson and stuff were like, fuck, like only using Helvetica or whatever.
Right.
And like doing all this, what do you call it? Postmodernism, like experimental shit. But now it's like almost not experimental anymore. It's kind of just like people want the whole like anti-design or whatever. Like, I don't even know how to label it, and probably that's for better. It doesn't really need a label, but I think it's just, I guess to sum it up, I think it's cool that people are doing more shit that isn't the same over and over.
I think kind of the juvenileness and the rudimentariness of like design that doesn't follow the rules is just so much more like accessible. It is designed for the people.
Mm-hmm.
It is like the lack of like professionalness, I think just makes it, just kind of brings us closer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, with like accessibility and, yeah, that's a fine enough word. With accessibility, there's a lot more community because it feels a lot less like when I was first starting out. Like I talked to some other younger people that say like, oh, design's always been like fun, and like I'm on Instagram, I share my posters or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But when I was in college, like people were assholes and everyone was like gatekeeping everything, and like you'd post your work online and like 5 like 40-year-old guys would tell you like you're not supposed to use that font or some shit, and you'd just like, you'd be like all ashamed or whatever. Now it's like I don't know, I feel like early internet designers like took the like burden off of all these people that are able to do whatever they want now.
Are you talking about like early internet, like Angel Fire, kind of vampire
just like
freaks
not
era?
anyone specific, but just I guess people that were like we're kind of like the, at least for me, I feel like I'm in the guinea pig like Instagram and stuff like that generation. I'm not as old as like, you know, early internet per se, but maybe early social media is more what I meant.
Yeah, I remember that time on the internet where everyone felt like their like limited opinions mattered. I used to take that to heart so hard.
I know. Sometimes it was like, I think I still struggle with it. Like I find it nowadays with like, I've been trying to use like TikTok more, and it's not the same criticism, but it's almost the opposite. Like everyone wants to be like, I don't know, like it's just these really young kids that don't know what they're talking about and getting into arguments with me about, like I posted that Silk Sonic like album art redesign that I did, and I used like the Obi strip because I wanted it to be like, you know, Japanese release, and I made the video about it, and that was kind of the methodology. And all these kids on TikTok were like, you could not, like, I hate people that just use Japanese like for style or for trends, or like this is like cultural appropriation and all this. And I was just like, I don't know, like there's like a intention behind this design, and I did this on purpose, but they're just like, and then it's funny when you see like someone like criticize people, someone corrects them, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, my bad. And it's like, yeah, you're bad. Why'd you say it in the first place? You know?
Crazy. I kind of love the fiery spirit of people, and also people who are willing to accept new information, or that they're wrong, or willing to accept a different perspective. I think it's again, I think it's just bringing us closer. Like people will bring up their concerns out of concern, like not out of hate, but maybe I'm just naive.
I think you have a point. I think some people are probably just looking, like, I don't think a lot of people have like ill intentions. I just think a lot of the internet, everything's so like short-lived and like doesn't matter. Like it feels like you just say whatever you want and there's no like repercussions, and then you just kind of leave it. And then like I've read, you know, you could read something online and it could be like not true, and then if you never see the like correction, you just think that thing's true your rest of your life, you know?
Right.
Which
like
is pretty crazy.
I thought bears hibernated in the winter. That meant that they ate a lot and then they slept a lot like all winter. But I just learned like that's not even true.
Really? I still thought that too. I didn't know that was. Why is that not true? They don't do that?
They don't do that. I could look it up, but I learned that they don't do that, and my mind is blown because it's just like learning a factoid and like thinking it's
that's
true.
Like a given. I thought that was just obvious. Like everything's about bears sleeping all through the winter in their caves or whatever they do.
We've been lied to.
Damn,
Big
that's
bear
gonna be
media.
like, yeah, that's like the birds aren't real shit. Have you seen all that?
I've seen that. I like that.
Yeah.
They're just government drones.
Why'd you name the Foie Gras? Like, what's the, I know you said it was kind of a joke, but what's the, I guess, inspiration?
There's like a couple avenues of inspiration. Well, first, I just feel like a silly person. Mm-hmm. And it's just a silly name. Secondly, foie gras in French directly translates to fat liver, and humans can get fat in their liver. My cousin got it, and you can get fat in your liver by just kind of living a party lifestyle, like drinking too much and eating a lot of rich food. And I kind of like the reaction I get sometimes by having a name such as foie gras, and then trying to operate in these like metal communities with my music and my drone music. I don't know. It's definitely like a double take name sometimes for some people.
Mm-hmm. It's also it's like controversial, you know, the dish or whatever. Like people don't like it. Even the people that aren't like vegan sometimes are like, I don't know about that. Like that's intense or whatever.
Yeah, it's completely immoral. But like mine, that's another thing that I think it's the irony of like this brutally sourced food served in the highest of settings. And I love fancy stuff. I do not agree with foie gras. I am a vegetarian.
That adds another layer to the irony of this name origin.
Yeah, it just kind of evolved.
Yeah, I like that. One answer is I'm just silly, and then the other one is like a super like, it's like an origin story and why you did it and everything. So I guess however you're feeling that day, you could answer that question very easily by saying you're silly, or give them
I'm silly but answer. With depth.
Yeah I think that's a good trait, silly and depth, you know, because then you get the kind of best of both worlds. What would you, I was going to ask you this question, but I guess it doesn't really make sense anymore after you told me kind of a little more about your story. But I was going to say, if you had to give up your music or design, what would you do? But I feel like I know that now.
Yeah, I would give up music.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I love working with musicians, and I get to work with musicians more when I do design.
So you have that, the studio album that you did. Did you make the artwork or no?
Yes, I did. The head of my label, Angel Ceballos, took the photo. It's just me on a motorcycle with a snake.
Yeah.
And like really hot boots, and I did the layout for it.
Because it's dope, and I like the layout, and it feels more like just photo heavy albums feel like very official and like driven by like a big company or something, but it doesn't feel like I didn't know if you made it or not, because it's definitely different from stuff that you put out online, you know?
Right. Well, Angel Ceballos, she's like this world-renowned photographer, right? And we gotta use her things. And there was a bit of like an aesthetic of butting heads, because I really wanted to make it like over processed and Xeroxy, and she's like, no, keep some dignity to it, and she was right.
Yeah, because as a photographer, it's like you don't want your shit run through like all the filters and like getting like thrashed. But then as a designer, especially someone who works in like the style you do, it's like that's a given almost. You have to give it that effect.
I'm glad we didn't I feel like it's more timeless the way that Angel directed it.
Mm-hmm. Are you planning on so you said that the tour and all that got stopped and then you got back more into design. Are you planning on making more music though and putting out another album or no?
Yes. It's finished. It's done recording. It has a name. It's just being mixed right now. And I can't wait to, I feel like I'm going to rise like a phoenix out of the ashes with this next one. I'm really excited.
Do you have ideas for the art already?
No. Well, yeah, kind of. Because I'm working with Angel Ceballos again, definitely something photo heavy, but I want to seem like an alien. I've been working out a lot, and I'm trying to get like a 6-pack, and see where it goes from there. And then definitely a lot more design elements, like from the occult and the 1800s and stuff too.
Yeah. Do you what is your, I guess then I feel like some of the stuff I was planning on asking you, a lot of my ideas got a wrench thrown in them when you first told me that the design was your original passion or whatever and your main thing, because a lot of my questions seem centered around, as a singer, as an artist, blah blah blah, about design, but it's almost the other way around, and the vice versa. But what is your main stuff you do for freelance? Do you mostly work with just other artists and things?
The thing that I enjoy doing is definitely working with other artists. I have my corporate jobs that I have to keep under wraps to a certain extent. And working with a lot of artists in LA, like I'm so happy I've met most of the people that I work with, and it rules.
That's dope. Are you do you feel that your musical persona and you as a designer is very well known to everyone, that you are the same person, or not at all?
I think I've been finding out recently that no. Like people will message me and be like, "Oh wait, Foie Gras, like you're the music person." I'm like, "Yeah, it's me."
It's kind of cool that way though, right?
I like it a lot.
You get to almost have like a layer of like anonymousness, but then when they figure it out, it's like a cool thing for that person, to tell you that they figured it out.
Makes me feel special for sure.
What do you work in the style of stuff that you put online? I guess your personal work, do you work in that style a lot when you work with your non-corporate clients?
Yes. One thing, because I feel that my work is very not cohesive. One thing I ask new clients is to pick out a couple pieces that I've done that they like. And then I try to make an amalgamation of what I think it is. Even if like on the surface, they're like, there's no difference between these things. I'm like, no, I know.
Right. Yeah. I think that, I sometimes when I work with clients, I do similar to that, or we create some kind of mood board or whatever. And sometimes like it gets to this space where I'm just like, I don't even know if I'm the person that should be making this. Like, this isn't even anything that I do. Like, why did you contact me? This is like, whatever specific example, 3D or something, Yeah.
I mean, commissioning an artist is an art form. And I feel like I've had to teach a lot of my friends how to ask for what they want from other artists. And then it's the thing that you said. It's like, I don't understand why you're going after me, because I never said that I could do this. I never showed that I could do this. But I think there's always going to be like an element that your client likes that maybe that they just don't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
Kind of the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. One thing I learned this past few years, like as I started freelancing a lot heavier, I used to like be a lot more disconnected from the client in terms of like communication. Like I was very responsive and I would message a lot, but I didn't like doing like calls or meeting them because I don't know, maybe anxiety, or also just like I felt like it was just a distraction. I just wanted to get right into the thing, and I'll just, I'll reply to you on my keyboard super fast. But I started doing like discovery calls and just like having these chats like as we start or right before we start. And that like even a 5-minute call can turn into, 5 hours of work into 10 minutes because they'll just like mention a little nugget of like knowledge that they wouldn't have typed to you, but they're like, and they'll say something that maybe isn't important to them, but it's so crucial to like the process. Like they'll just say like a throwaway thing like, oh yeah, and I hate yellow or whatever it may be. And then your idea was yellow, and you do this whole project and they're just like, I don't know, something about it I don't like. But if you had that call with them in the beginning, you may have figured out they hate yellow or whatever the thing is.
Right. Especially talking to clients, like you're right. It's like having that discussion in the beginning, like definitely changes how you approach something. And, but also having that discussion, not to repeat myself, but it is an art form, like learning how to navigate a client. Like that's not something you learn in school. That's just something you learn with real world experience.
Which is crazy. They don't like, I'd argue that should be like, 25% of the education is like the business of it. Like no one knows shit when they graduate in terms of like, they're all just like weird little designer kids that don't know how to talk to people, and they're supposed to go out and like book these big logo projects and shit,
I feel like I didn't learn anything in school. I went to a public school, a public college for design, technically visual communications.
What school was it?
We don't have to talk about that.
Okay, that's fine.
I just realized I forgot to plug in my computer. Give me a second.
No worries.
I feel like if my college ever wanted me to come back and talk as an alumni, I would just be very honest and be like, I did not learn anything here. I learned everything on YouTube and just trial and error. And looking at old designs and being like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do that myself.
I think the one thing I would say that I mostly agree. Like the things I learned in school, I don't think are like the things that are most important to me that I learned. However, since I was learning those things, I feel like that's what drove me to like learn these other things, because I felt unsatisfied. If I didn't go to school, I'd probably be online learning about like grids and shit, or whatever.
Right. That is such a cool way to look at it, because you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Wow. Crazy.
Well, I guess hopefully probably other people think that, because what I always thought was crazy was in school, the people that did the school, that's it, didn't design like for fun, came back to school with their like, kind of shitty, like whatever projects. And it's like, what, like, I don't think this is the career to like, just do it because you got to and get the assignments done. Like just become like a business person or something and make more money. If you don't really like, you don't have like the passion for it, it doesn't seem like the best career for like taking it easy or whatever.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe that's just me like talking shit, but that was just an observation. I felt very, and I wasn't even good in school. I don't think I was by any means good, but this is the way I knew my school was not that good either, is I was one of the best and I wasn't that good. But it was clear that everyone wasn't that good. And then I go online and I see actual good people and I'm like, oh, this is obvious. Like we're not doing anything over here. But I don't know. I think people ask me too a lot about school, you know, should I go to school and things? And I don't like to answer that much because it feels like they're going to go or not go and then blame me. But
oh yeah, I don't even consider that.
I don't know. I really did. The part I liked about it the most was the people that I met and just like talking to them about like designing stuff, like some of my friends and things. But like I would never go to like Zoom school. That seems like ridiculous because you're not getting the only important part, which is the like communication or whatever.
Right. Man, I'm thinking about all the times people have asked me that, and just out of excitement, it has been like a resounding no from me, like don't go to school. Mm-hmm. But you're making me see it so much differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to want to say that, you know, especially when you see all these people that don't go to school and they're like way ahead of the school people.
But I'm a person who I think the education people get for design should be free. I post a lot of my resources on Instagram. I want to help people. There are some things that I gatekeep because like for me, having that information kept from me made me a better designer. You know,
That's
I'm not
a good
trying
way to put it.
I'm not trying to make people suffer, and I don't feel like I'm in competition with anyone. I tell my secrets to my friends, you know, my deepest secrets, my deepest design secrets.
Yeah.
But when I share something, when I share a resource, it's because for me it was like a spark that led to something bigger.
Yeah. I like the idea of doing it though, almost as like sometimes stuff has to be a little bit harder. Like you don't want to make people suffer, but I feel like with the internet, no one like is like, they're not like bad anymore. Like they don't give themselves time to just suck and like not know what they're doing and like post terrible shit online for like years because, you know, they get all these like asset packs and they put shit together and it's like, it's pretty dope, you know, like it looks good, but I like if I had that, I'd probably would have hindered my own like curiosity and like exploration of my own techniques and these other things I like. So yeah, like we need like a new word maybe for like gatekeeping it's almost in a like for your own good way though. In
a loving way. Like
like you lock the door, but you're like, we'll give you the key like in a year or whatever.
Right. It's the design escape room.
Yeah.
Like here are the clues, but if you want to get out, like figure it out.
Yeah, that's good. What are some of the main like sources of inspiration for the different themes and things in your design? Because I see a lot of it, but I'm curious like what specifically interests you.
Let me look at my design.
Okay.
To be completely honest, my first and main and probably still biggest inspiration for my design is femininity throughout the ages. I really liked 50s style and 50s advertisements. Yeah. And then it kind of evolved to a lot of smut from the 60s. But a lot of like feminine centered stuff. And I really enjoyed like pinups and kind of just lost photos of smut because they're so beautiful. Yeah. And they're being lost to time because I don't know, maybe people don't think they're important, but I look at it and I find just such artistry. It's not to be repetitive, but like it's like human vulnerability on display, and I'm really attracted to that.
Yeah. I like the stuff that you do because a lot of the subject matter and stuff, yeah, is very reminiscent of like 50s and 60s and like the femininity. And I see a lot of that in like traditional collage and like magazine stuff. But then you're putting it into this other world of design that I really like. That's like the whole zine kind of like punk Xerox graphics culture where those elements usually aren't there because the people that were making those things at that time weren't pulling from those sources. So it's almost like a whole new, a new thing that you've kind of figured out.
Thank you for realizing that and noticing that, because when I was 19 and I started designing when I was 17, but when I started taking it seriously at 19, my biggest design inspirations were black metal zines from like the Midwest, from the early 2000s and the 90s. And I when I looked at it, I just saw such extreme beauty and rawness in so many directions. And I really just wanted to capture what that felt like to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you did it, and I think
thank you.
It's because it's easy to do it, you know, with the subject matter that already commonly placed in that setting. Mm-hmm. So to see it from a different perspective is cool. Have you ever seen this book called like Fucked Up and Photocopied? It's like sometimes it's expensive, sometimes it's not. There's different volumes, but I think you would like it. You should check it out. It's a basically a big collection of like LA punk zines and like posters, and it's just like the design inspiration in there is dope. I got it from, I worked at this agency out here, and one of my art directors like gave it to me for Secret Santa.
This is so sick.
Yeah, it's dope.
I've never heard of this. Holy crap.
I'm sure if you buy the newer version too, it's cheaper, like a newer volume or whatever, because it's been around for a while.
Yeah, it's only $10.
Yeah, because the one that I have is worth like 100 or whatever.
Yeah.
Just because it's like from 2006 or some shit, you know? But yeah, it's dope. So it's like Pinterest on a book almost, you know? Or like how a lot of my Pinterest shit looks, at least.
Yes. Can I just say how much I love Pinterest?
Yeah, it gets a lot of hate because of the bad shit that people do with it, like just steal artwork and like print it on merch and shit. But Pinterest is fucking dope, but it's only dope if you make it dope. Like a lot of people's Pinterest is probably ugly, but because they have such a powerful algorithm, you know, you look at a few things and it's all that. But I love Pinterest, and I kind of stepped away from it for a while because I felt like it was almost like hindering me. Because I fell too into like it became part of my workflow. Like, oh, look at Pinterest, get inspiration, make something, finish it. But then I stopped, and then I went back and I was like, oh yeah, I love Pinterest. It's just good for like, even if you don't use any specific ideas from it, it's just kind of like it's almost like a therapeutic little like part of the process to just go through, and like, it's like scrapbooking or whatever or something.
I'm just so, yes, I agree. But I'm going to add to that. I'm invigorated by art. Art really moves me. And if for me, when I scroll Pinterest, and especially because I have it so curated to my interests, it's like exhilarating for me. It's my Disneyland. Every time I go through my inspiration board, it's like being surrounded by just all these beautiful objects.
I think I also do. I think I gatekeep my Pinterest though, like we were talking about, because I always put my boards on secret, you know, just because I don't want anyone looking at them, and I feel like it's kind of like where we were saying, like, it's like it took me a while to find all this shit and put it all together. Like, just let me have my little Pinterest circle unexposed, you know. But I think, I don't know. Have you found anything like Pinterest that works as well or better in terms of like
there was
websites?
Some things mentioned on TikTok, but I had never explored them.
Have you ever used the Internet Archive thing?
Oh my God, have I used Internet Archive? Of course, I use Internet Archive.
Yeah, I'm sure. I figured, but I use that, but I still put it in Pinterest. Like I use the Pinterest browser, like Chrome extension, that where you can save any image on the internet to a Pinterest board. It doesn't have to be from Pinterest. So I go on Internet Archive and I pretty much do that for some of it. That shit's dope. If anyone doesn't know Internet Archive, like it's kind of confusing a little bit to like navigate sometimes, and it doesn't really make much sense, but it's really dope when you find some cool like PDFs that aren't locked or anything. I guess you answered this. I was going to ask you if you're planning on designing your next art in a more style that I think is recognizable, like you post online, but if you're working with that other person again, probably not, huh?
We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I really need to feel the music too, and see, like, hear the final thing, and then like really think to myself, like, do I want to take this in a more depraved direction, like my design, or do I want to really embody something that I want to become?
What was I gonna say? This is off topic, switch up, but I thought you lived in Los Angeles. I don't know why, because you said you were visiting, and do you or not?
I did. I got evicted from my house. So I lived in this really beautiful mansion for super cheap, and I got evicted, and because the house sold.
That sucks.
Yeah, and I was just really tired. So I moved back to my parents' house, and that's why I go to the library to focus and really build up my momentum again, so I can come back to Los Angeles and have a career and thrive, because I can't go back into a 9-to-5 job. I don't want to, and if I can avoid that, I will. Yeah, sometimes I get so concerned with meeting the amount of money I was making at like my employee job as a freelancer, which happens more often than not, so I am proud of that. However, I always need to realize, like, but how, like, not doing that's worth at least half that amount of money or whatever. Like it's easy to become like ungrateful, or for lack of a better word, but it's pretty dope to not have to work at an actual job. And every time when I think of that, I'm like, oh yeah, or I'm stressed out, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like kind of nothing though compared to the everyday stress I had of wanting to not work at my job anymore. Right.
That shit sucks. I think I always advocate for like freelance or doing your own thing, but then I also don't want to encourage people if they're not in the position to do that, because don't just leave your job either, you know, if you don't have money.
Yeah, really just weigh all your options.
Yeah. So you're back in the Bay then? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area, San Jose, and life is peaceful here, and I go to the library every day, and I'm just a girl boss working on my empire. Yeah. And I think I'll be back in LA soon, because you just can't keep me away from that city. I really love it, like from the depths of my soul. Yeah, I love it so much, but I don't know. Sometimes I want to leave, and then I think like just more for money things, you know, because it's so expensive. That's so really expensive. It, though. But then I think like, what would I even be doing like somewhere else? Like, I don't know. Like everyone I know lives here. I like doing the activities that are here, and like my offline communities and roles that don't really happen in a lot of places besides like LA and a few other cities in terms of like music and things. And like, it's pretty dope. Like it's so expensive for a reason, you know, like it's pretty sick. It's not a lot like it. It's so sick. My life expanded when I moved to LA, and I miss it already. Like I just came back.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you know, go hard at the library, get all your shit done, and then you recharge and have time to come back soon. And but that's kind of all I had for you, and I appreciate you coming on. We are going to do the Q&A.
Sick.
But on the Patreon thing, and then but other than that, thank you again. It was really great meeting you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you. And everyone go check out her work, Foiegraphics, and is that what it is, like everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Check out?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Go check it out, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Bye.